Now, Max Olson, who joins us almost weekly from theathletic.com, had an article today about the alliance, but the article says Big 12 weighs its next move, expansion, exploration, Texas OU problem, and Bob Bowlesby's future. I want to read just a part of this. It's a lengthy article in theathletic.com. Here's what he did say. Sources telling him the Big 12 would, since the news of Texas and Oklahoma leaving, a source said at least 15 schools contacted the Big 12 to express interest in joining, most of them coming from the American Athletic Conference in the Mountain West. That makes sense if, in fact, those would be the two conferences. Who knows if it includes as well Brigham Young or not. But the allegation of the AAC plotting to poach Big 12 members at ESPN's direction surfaced. This was even as that story developed. And so I don't know if Max is an elite reporter, if the sources were saying that just to make the Big 12 look good, or I would think that there probably were a few teams that contacted the Big 12 even when they were vulnerable and maybe remained vulnerable. But if you look at that, whatever the next move is, of course, the Pac-12 makes an announcement maybe as early as Friday on what they're going to do. But that is good news that some called. The question is, of those 15, how many of them strengthens the conference? We've discussed this ad nauseum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised a bunch of people called. Of course they did. I mean, it's still, the Big 12 might be in a weak state right now. It's still the Big 12.
Still a Power 5.
It's still, I don't care if they're down to, 4 teams. I mean, based on the Power 5 status, they're still better than every conference not named the ACC, SEC, Pac-12, or Big 10. They are number 5. So I'm sure teams and conferences 10, 12, 7, 8 are calling. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. I mean, you saw the last go-round, Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, all of those folks, their ambassadors or their spokespeople, their fan bases, and how much they were clamoring to get a Big 12 spot. So I'm kind of surprised somewhat, because I would think, I still have this burning question in my head about, how much of an advantage is it to jump right now into the Big 12 with it being so uncertain? But, Power 5 status is Power 5 status, and that's something that, a lot of these teams have been desperately craving to have, because they know it makes a massive difference, and that's why these teams that currently have it, 8 teams who might not have it for much longer, they so desperately are trying to hang on to it. So, of course, some teams reached out. Yeah.
Well, and look, if you're Cincinnati right now and Luke Fickell and hoping that he doesn't, leave for a Power 5 job, you're the number 8 team in the country. You got to think, if you can maintain what you're doing right now and jump into the Big 12, there's not a whole lot of teams in the Big 12 left that would be immediately better than you right now. You could jump into that mix pretty quickly, and I'm sure there are other teams that feel that way. Now, for the Big 12, they got to think, well, what's the benefit to us overall other than just staying together? Are you going to really make more money or enough money? They're going to make less. Like, right now they're making $37 million a year. That's not going to happen anymore. It's probably going to be in the 20s somewhere, you would think, if they negotiate a new deal, and you don't even know who that's going to be. Right. So there's all these factors.
And one of the things that I continue to say, and I don't know if anyone's listening to this, and that's fine, but when you hear about Bob Bowlesby and the Big 12 not doing anything, this is a great post or chat from Jeff Grimm. Big 12 wants to probably expand, yes, but since Bob Bowlesby sent that letter to ESPN, wouldn't poaching teams be the same as what ESPN was accused of doing?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so. It depends on how you go about doing it. I mean, if Cincinnati's sitting there knocking on your front door and they're banging it down saying, hey, we want to be in the Big 12, I mean, Bob Bowlesby could just be a jerk and never answer it. But, I mean, if he opens the door, I wouldn't be surprised by that. The way you're saying it, if the Big 12 were to be predatory and start actively going after and trying to behind-the-scenes finagle the exits, then, yeah, that would be, that would be bad. That would not be morally right or ethically right, whatever. But I don't know what the situation is. And my thing on Bowlesby not talking wasn't about him coming out to announce, like, hey, we're going after teams. Just say something. Like, just say, acknowledge that there is still all this up in the air, and just, like, provide a statement that it's one sentence that says, hey, we're doing this. Like, you don't have to be specific, but at least let Big 12 fans know, like, hey, we're not just sitting on our hands and just going to wait this thing out and see what happens. Like, no, we're actively at least attempting to try to keep this thing together. And, I think maybe that would calm down some of the talk. But, I mean, then again, maybe there's nothing he could say that would make anybody feel any better because everybody knows that every school in this situation will be the first to jump if they get the opportunity to do so.
Kehlani, I think it is, and I hope Kehlani, was Bowlesby awake enough to take those calls, or was he asleep at the wheel? And, of course, that's fair game.
Yeah.
No question about it.